think this may be the most important video I've ever made, and because there's so much content, I already know this is probably going to end up being a multi-part series. But I also want to ask you a favor. Could you help me make sure this gets out? It's no secret that those of us who are making content over here, we're seeing our platforms change dramatically, and I believe it's only a matter of time, probably sooner than later, that we're going to lose access to these accounts. So please help us get the word out, help us amplify our messages. We certainly do appreciate it. I want to show you 2 video clips, and then we'll talk about them.
What do? You engage in civil mass disobedience. You hit the streets. You call for a national strike.
This isn't unions, picket lines, or collective bargaining. I'm talking about something quieter, far more unsettling to the system, and that is an economic strike.
So for those of you who may not know who the first person is, that is Dr. Cornel West, and he is a world-renowned, highly respected professor and a leading voice in left-wing politics, advocating for justice and love. And you can find that video in its entirety on Dr. West's channels on other platforms. I'm also tagging a creator here who posted it here on TikTok. He also spoke about the content of this video in a recent interview on CNN, so you can go find that as well. In that video, Dr. West says that we have reached the fork in the road, not a fork in a road, but the fork. And to me, that feels poignant and incredibly powerful, and I agree with him. The second video clip is from Scott Galloway, who is also well-known globally, highly respected author and a teacher. I've tagged his account here on TikTok where you can find some more information about him. But what Scott says is that Trump doesn't respond to outrage, he responds to markets. So he's not necessarily suggesting a labor strike or picket lines or something like that. He's suggesting something a little bit more quieter, in his words, far more unsettling to the system that Trump responds to. Inside both videos, Scott's and Dr. West's, there is a call to action. And that's what I want to talk about in this series, because I think it's really important to help us not only move beyond just the inspiration that these videos might incite in you, but also just help us with strategy and hopefully into action. So that's what I want to do. I want to share some action steps. We need organization, we need strategy, and we need a collective uprising. But before I get into that, I want to pause here and put some context into this. We are talking about organization, strategy, collective uprising that is more intentional than just the one-day strikes or the single-day protests. Now, both are effective. I am not speaking negatively to them at all. Movements must start somewhere. So if you hyper-focus on anything I say as criticizing about what's happening, you're a special kind of unnecessary and unhelpful Karen, and I'm going to block you. I'm just not going to deal with that kind of person who's just looking for a way to distract us from the conversation that we need to have. And I'm going to be 100% convinced that you're either a bot or you're a plant, and you have no business in this discussion or in any of my content. So I'm making this video series in hopes so people aren't going to be overwhelmed into paralysis, because that's certainly where I find myself a lot of times. So if I'm finding myself here, I can imagine that other people are as well. Because what we need is more conversation around organization and strategy that led to things like the Montgomery bus boycott, the 381-day boycott. The reason it succeeded was because of the meticulous organization, because of the massive coordinated carpool system, the nonviolent resistance, the strong leadership from figures like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was pivotal to its success, the leveraging of economic pressure on the city's bus system because the Black community was the primary user of the bus system. And when you take that out, the economic pressure was devastating to the city of Montgomery. It wasn't just the fact that there was strategy and organization and ways to communicate what needed to happen. It was about people committing to being a part of the solution, being a part of the collective uprising. Here's what I believe. I believe inside the voices of Dr. West and Scott Galloway, we're starting to see national leadership. And I'll share about how I think that both of those videos are calls to action. But it is certainly about mobilizing the community, the masses, to provide economic pressure. And the type of long-term initiatives that I think we're going to have to look at are certainly going to take a different type of planning. What we have to do is ensure that those who are already harmed by systems of oppression aren't harmed more. Children need to eat. Black and brown people, the disabled, they're all going to be disproportionately harmed because they're already being negatively impacted by a system that is set up to create harm and challenges for them. And now, under the pressure of the Trump regime, you're certainly seeing that play out and be exacerbated even more. So anything that we do, you don't want to create more harm. It's about creating a strategy and effectiveness that will put the pressure where it belongs, which is on the administration. In his video, Scott said it best when he said that one-day strikes are an annoyance, but the real impact is on something that must be acknowledged in shareholders' meetings. Think Target. Target finally had to acknowledge that the boycotts of their stores has had a negative impact on their earnings. What I hope to do with this video series is something that integrates the inspiration and the information that Dr. West shares in what he calls civil mass disobedience and Scott's initiative called Resist and Unsubscribe. And you can already find information out there. He's talking about that on his platforms. And so what we're going to do is discuss both. Now, in the next video, I'll go further into the teachings of Dr. West and Scott Galloway so that we have the context and the framework for what we can do so that we are not moving into overwhelm that keeps us in paralysis. So stay tuned for part 2, but also remember this: hope without action is nothing more than a whimsical dream. Spirituality without activism is nothing more than thoughts and prayers. Sacred activism is spirituality with hope, and that hope can move mountains. I am believing that for us, and I'm going to proceed accordingly. I'll see you back for part 2.